And you're fine.
Hello, everyone. This is the Republican Caucus for February 4th, 2025. A couple things that I'll do for today, or you should be, just the schedule for the week. Expect the EAA to be out on Friday. We're going to do the same for today, or this week, 10, 3, 3, and 9:30. But maybe in the next 2 or 3 weeks, we're going to switch that to the earlier. When more bills start coming out, before that meeting. Just to keep in mind, there is going to be a bill that could be, it's gonna be kind of hard to listen to on the floor. It's gonna be, H41, which is the use of sports bill. So just keep in mind, if you have to, just let us know.
What was that?
H41. It's gonna have some sensitive topics to it, and there could be some sensitive things on it, so if you have, any issues, just let us know. The committee moves in, so the House Education and House, Government Ops have moved. We are about to do mezzanine now. And so next week, we're gonna be doing this caucus in probably with a room 10. So we're gonna be staying over there, so we're not gonna walk over here. Democrats will be from 11 to be 10. That's how we used to do it before COVID. So I haven't been that movie in caucus now in like 5 years, so it's gonna be great to have it back. And those are gonna be, available to reserve if you want, so you just go to Sergeant Irons if you ever have, if you ever in the fan space, or if you want to run, meet in the mezzanine's gonna have a couple of links that you're gonna be able to, meet in if you want. You have to go to the Sergeant Irons to get those. That's all I have. I will just make it another pitch that formally, have the future caucus. Launch party that he goes at 5:30, no the orders. I don't know if it's cash bar, people ask me. I will find out tonight, but everyone's welcome. If you want to be, 45%, everyone is welcome to go. Do have, it's.
Yes.
In the back. Let's see. Oh, you got that. We do have that Mom and Lisa Hagel, they're here from the Government Operations Committee. They want to come up and talk about the Bennington one. Yeah. So we'll open it up to them. They're gonna explain some things, and then we'll open up for questions for them. So just please give them your attention.
Good. So Chair Byron's gonna let you know what we have been talking about for the last 3 weeks in our committee, what we've been learning.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I appreciate this time. So the House Committee on Government Operations and Military Affairs has spent the majority of our first few weeks going through a lot of content, both testimony and also subject matter versions. We can educate ourselves on constitutional authority, what the directives through the House are pertaining to the petition of election in the Bennington 1 district. So kind of just a timeline, right? About maybe 12 days after the election, I was notified to come to a meeting about this particular issue. I had to approach the House, the Speaker, and Legislative Council to start sort of just discussing what happened and what it would look like with this particular type of scenario where ballots were, some of the ballots had the incorrect house race on them. It was only that house race that was incorrect. It was on the border of the voting districts, so Bennington 1, Bennington 5. And there was roughly 45 to 56 ballots that were sent out incorrectly. Some people did vote, some did not vote. Some people voted the correct candidate, noticing that it was incorrect on the ballot. So this was flagged, and the process that we have spearheaded the last couple of weeks started to unfold. So why is the House doing this? I guess is the first question, right? So there is a constitutional provision on powers of the House, powers of the House, In the Constitution's, chapter 2, section 14, and one of the lines in that states that they judge the elections and qualifications of their own members. So that means the House figuring this out. It is not a court issue. It is a decision to the courts. And the courts said, nope, not us. It's all on you. This is a House concern only. So it is not going to Senate. It is not going to that. So with that, clerk of the House started laying out sort of the case precedents that are sort of guiding this process. The most recent case that directly relates to kind of this voter roll issue was 1983. We also looked at a case that was in the Florida, is also relatively pertinent to this. And so we started immersing ourselves in that case history and precedent. I think with work of the House and our legislative council and the detailed documents that they provided us, and if any of you want to poke at that stuff, it is all on our page of our committee website. So through this process, once we really immersed ourselves and started educating ourselves on why our directive is this, we heard from an attorney representing the city member. We heard from the city member, we heard from clerks, we heard from members of the BCA, we heard from the other candidate who was petitioning. We spent hours with both the candidates hearing their legal cases and their local council. We also heard from Governor Douglas's former deputy secretary of state, Paul Gillies. We heard from former Secretary of State Jim Condos. And we are also going to hear again this afternoon from our current Secretary of State, Deputy Secretary of State. One more conversation with the clerk from the impact districts. It has been a lot of really intense work. This was a lot to put on committee members who have never actually engaged in a process like this, whether or not we were returning to the committee. Yeah, there's a committee new to the committee and also new to the legislature. So I just want to give them a shout out for all the attention that they've given this. This is a very big responsibility to navigate. Maria, so I also want to say that I have a lot of knowledge there. So we are still refining the direction we're heading in, but we have more going this time. We're hoping to have the decision that the committee is going to present to the body. So I've missed one last there. So we will move forward with whatever decision we land on, and that committee decision will put this recommendation to the House for presentation that will, it's not quite a bill report, but it's similar to a bill report. It's not having any number. So that will be the process when it goes to the floor, which we have some debate there. And then it will be able to the total body on the recommendation.
I don't think I have anything to add, and I know that House Appropriations needs to make a presentation as well, so mindful of your time, could you please offer up any questions you might have about the process or what we've been through? Richard?
Yes, thank you. Will it require 3 votes of the House or just 1?
My understanding is that it'll move forward to the floor and it'll be plain reflective of our second reading, third reading. I don't think that first reading process happens, but again, this is new to me. But I'm seeing it as 2 separate votes on the floor, just like we do with the bill.
And Richard, we can confirm that with the clerk and get back to you on that, I'll do that.
Get back to us.
Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, Mike.
As a testimony from anyone who received an instruction.
We have not, because for some reason, some of the names are known, but unless folks want to come forward, we have been very careful about people's privacy. You know, the right to privacy when you vote and putting people's choices out there is a very sensitive issue. So unless those folks wanted to come forward, which I believe the candidates have. Right, so we have received petitions, but nobody has asked to testify. And I believe both the candidate, the sitting representative and the petitioner, which is the person who's contesting, have spoken to the people who got the wrong ballots, or the ones that they can find. Some of them are not able to be found. John?
Kind of, what I was gonna ask was whether we had any concrete idea of like the town's voter rolls may have been correct. I'm just thinking, this sounds like what was mailed in the ballot. As opposed to if I just show up to my voting place without it, and I say, yeah, I have a ballot. Would I have gotten the correct one? But the people in this scenario say they got their ballot, ripped it up and said, I'm voting on that day, not thinking they're supposed to bring that ballot with them anyway. When they showed up, would they have gotten the correct one?
We didn't actually get into that level of detail. That's actually a great question. But what we did do through this process was discover some like, I'm gonna use the word flaws loosely, but things that could be done better with this process on how the like current addresses are identified and how they go out in different checks and balances within the process. So we've got several items that we're gonna take up in our elections bill. So taking what we've learned through this process and applying it in like a corrective action context with the elections bill in the coming weeks is part of the steps of this.
So we wouldn't know if the town voter rolls are correct with that order.
So, I mean, I want to just say like with my gut right now, and boy, I hate making assumptions in a context like this. I would think they'd be reflective of each because they're assigned the individual. You know what I mean? Because it's like the individual with the ballot. But as far as we know through testimony, it was the one that were mailed out. But that is definitely something we can take up as a continuing.
And I think I thought you were starting to go in the very beginning of your question was, did anybody show up at the poll and realize that they were getting the wrong ballot at the poll? We heard of no one who challenged the ballot that they were given at the polls. And no one from the BCA challenged anyone who showed up at the polls in that particular election. So that's really important to remember, that at that time of the election, no one challenged anything.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, basically based on something you just mentioned, what kind of legislation you're gonna be putting forward? Because the last time we went through this, back when we had a conflict, that came to the House, we did have legislation that was drafted. And the other question I have is that, when you do that, is there any way that you can, deal with the discrepancy in people's addresses between a mailing address and a residence, a PO box and a residence? Because that's easy to confuse, and the DMV is involved with this somehow, and they may have mailing addresses that are not resident addresses.
So that is also that came up within the conversation of this, and she's not here to say the solid fashion, we're gonna use the resources, somebody who's been, you know, about 30 decades. So her lived experience with this is gonna be really valuable to sort of refine that, but a lot of that conversation came up as expanded, you know,
My question is largely this or isn't my minutes.
you'll be 2 for 1. I like that.
This.
Anybody else before we turn it over to health and folks? Yes, right.
Have you actually reached out to any of the folks and asked them about it?
We have not specifically reached out to any, we received emails where they want feedback as to some of the testimony. We spoke to BCAs and spoke to candidates, I'm supposed to be a recommendation. Again, to what Lisa said, there's some people who are a little angry right now, as they stepping forward because they don't. We have, so the sheriff's wins, you know. We'll be respectful of that and trying to look at it. In that's a lot of detail, but also be conscious of the realities that we don't do right now.
Anybody else? Thank you all for your attention. We really appreciate it.
And yeah, please, like, anything else pops up in your head, grab one of us. We're an open book. Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, thank you for coming and explaining this, and I had to reach out with any questions. So I'm turn over to Jim, Representative Harrison now, we can talk about. Yeah. Thank you.
Morning. So John and Lynn, who are colleagues on the House Appropriations, they along with myself, are passing out what we call a one-page summary of the budget adjustment. I think most of you are aware the budget adjustment is essentially a true halfway through the fiscal year that we're in currently. For example, Medicaid, which is an entitlement program, is probably the single biggest item in here. If the caseload is underestimated, we have to true up for that, or if the utilization, et cetera. So probably 95% of this is exactly what the administration recommended. It is what it is in a lot of cases. So I just certainly, hopefully, between the three of us can answer any questions. I don't see Maria Blair from our joint fiscal office, but she was hopefully going to join us as well. There's some other questions. If our memory doesn't serve us right, she will help us on some of this. So if you look at this summary sheet, essentially you have what the administration recommended for doing the budget. And then you have the House column. And then if there are differences in that gray column. So if you look through this, most of this is what the governor recommended. There's obviously some things that aren't, and hopefully we can answer them. But I did want to point to a couple things. First of all, the biggest item in here in terms of general fund is line number 20. I'm sorry, line number 21, which is the net total of general fund money that went to the agency of services, the 47.7 million. Most of that is Medicaid. The Medicaid number is larger than that, but under Medicaid, federal government pays, in our case, it's like 57%, I think, in the state share. On average is 43%. Maria, you're there. So Maria, if for folks that know Maria, she is an invaluable resource in our joint fiscal office. And if our memory fails us, Maria has the answer. So, so that's the single biggest item in here. There are also other items shifting money around, which the House committee has agreed with the government. And you might have heard it in some emails on childcare, for example. We have set up a fund, the utilization based on the statutory requirements for childcare didn't match up. So we have actually saved some money on this. But we're doing everything that the requirement. Some of you may have seen the memo from the fiscal office and that the speakers last week. So where there are changes in, for example, on line
15, there was an update on the ordered mental health evaluations. That's from the Department of State's attorneys. So there was a slight increase from basically 190,000 in the original budget, or the budget of just the governor, to 240,000. So that's things that we may have gotten additional testimony on as it's gone through the process. If you go down further, line 57, there are several items in here. This is actually a reduction from the governor had recommended, and you can see on the notes that are in there, the column, I don't remember, but it was at 68,000 versus the recommended, or versus 236,000 reduction from what the government proposed. So you have, yes, Maria.
Like the option right there is also the state attorney's budget, and they even have that line, and keep the number of dollars, and that's not saving the 68. It's all that's true.
And you get, thank you, Maria. The other thing I want to mention is this is just one sheet, which I chose to have printed out and give to you this morning. We have on our website additional spreadsheets that give a little bit more detail. So if you have some questions on some of the fund transfers or what we call reversions are monies and various allocations that weren't used, and we sweep them over back to the general fund. So that's how some of this is paid for, in addition to the increase in revenue that we had last summer. We also will have a one-page summary highlights of the Budget Adjustment Act, which will be available, I think, this afternoon.
So, right now, it's in the block, so
Momentarily, there you go. So anyway, so continuing on, do you have a question, sir? Okay, so continuing on, if you look at line 62 and 63, the governor's proposal included $4 million for basically provider stabilization. That was for treatment facilities, specifically, mostly one. I don't know if I can publicly say that. But Valley Vista is, I said, okay, is got some financial challenges. We don't want to lose that facility. And so part of the governor recommended initially $1 million. Since then, some additional provider issues have come to light with some of our community health centers, the federal, the qualified health centers. And they asked us to increase the 4 million to 10 million, with 6 million this second bucket. And there is some language in there to clarify the 4 million and the 6 million. So that's why you see a reduction and then you see an increase of 10 million. So it shows up as a house change. It really came from the administration in terms of doing that just to help keep some of our providers in business. Additionally, and it's in that AHS line item above, there's quite a bit of money on nursing home assistance. Nursing homes are very, very fragile financial standpoint. A lot of the Medicaid reimbursements do not cover the costs. They've had to rely on travel nurses and stuff like 3 or 4 times whatever. So as a nurse, so that's part of the challenges going on with healthcare. If you go down further to line 67 and 67.1.2 and line 67. last summer, the emergency board, which is made up of our 4 money chairs, 2 House, 2 Senate, Ways and Means and Appropriations, Finance and Senate Appropriations, and the governor formed the emergency board. They took $14 million that was previously assigned to the treasurer's office for bond buy. At any one given point in time, the state has probably $600 million bonds for various projects. They took 14 million of it to help with immediate relief on the flooding last summer. That's why we have an emergency board. Things happen off session. They have the ability to shift certain funding. The understanding was that the administration would propose paying back that $14 million budget adjustment, which they did. They recommended putting $14 million. House Appropriation Committee talked with the treasurer. The treasurer said, well, there's no immediate hurry. In other words, we won't need it for the coming year. So we spent the $14 million. That's probably the single biggest difference in terms of dollars in the BAA from the governor and the treasurer. So up above it, if you look, line 63.2, 1.84 million was to extend the winter rule for the general assistance housing, i.e. health program, from March 31, which was in last year's budget, to June 30. And then it includes 2.8 million for a one-time appropriation to, it's called the Act 186 pilot project. This is housing unit for disabled. I think this is in the Burlington area.
There are 3 pilots
Yeah.
that were funded, one was not funded.
Right.
And there's 2.8 in the general fund that we go, plus other money to go. This is for the IDDHI, the intellectual developmental. Yeah, it's their housing
Yeah.
initiative, and it's primarily for adults, young adults who are being taken care of by their families. And everybody's aging out, and this is to get people who will no longer be able to be taken care of by their families. This is the 3rd pilot.
The biggest chunk of it is 8.6 million to Vermont Housing and Conservation Board. And the interest there was to give them some additional funds now that they believe they can help attract more developers for the housing projects later this spring. There is more money in next year's budget for PHCP, but this was an additional appropriation. So almost done. Further down in line 75, there is $3 million transfer to the what's called the state's liability insurance fund. Vermont is, the state is self-insured for things like liability. The $3 million represents the second payment to the Attorney General to settle the EB5 lawsuit. You may have remembered that in the news last year. I think there's a big hole in the city of Newport that may or may not be related to it.
It's an opportunity waiting.
That's correct. Yes, that's, I sort of made the opportunity. Anyhow, you might recall it was a lawsuit with, I'm sure all.
People who were looking for their green cards.
Right, yeah, yes. So last year we made a one-time payment, I want to say it was 9.5 million, give or take. The second payment is 3 million. Obviously that creates a hole. Last year we did a one-time appropriation for the first payment. This was actually in the governor's fiscal year 26 budget, but in what's called the C section, which is the current year. So we just moved it up. The 3 million came from another appropriation. Maria, help, what area was that? It came from, yeah, but anyhow, I want to say, housing finance. VHFA.
Yes.
Yeah, but it was not, it was previously appropriated funds that they weren't gonna use, so we just basically swapped it out of there and put it into this liability fund, pay the second phase of the EV fund, so. Additionally, there was some reversions, again, as I mentioned, reversions are taken funds or money from different accounts or appropriations that weren't spent, moving it back. There was $850,000 of reversions of the government proposal from the Judiciary Committee and or Judiciary Branch to go back into the general fund. Judiciary came in and said they would like to keep those funds for part of their ongoing needs to one courthouse needed an ADA compliance with their bathrooms and stuff. And the other was for the biggest part of it was for updating their internet wire. I guess some of the courts actually still had your technical category cat 3. Obviously the new standard might be cat 6 now or Ethernet wire. So they needed to be updated. If you need a breakdown somewhere, breakdown it was per courthouse to do it. We had given them money previously for that as part of their network upgrade, and evidently it didn't cover all of that, so they were looking to keep that reversion. So
Essex County Clerk.
yeah, I think that's Essex County. Where it was.
Essex County.
Yeah. Does anybody even know where Essex County is?
Yeah, I do.
Of course we do.
If you look on the temperature map all day this winter, it's the coldest spot in Vermont.
It's snowing last night.
Yeah, I think it's been there. Our colleague from Burt represents 10 communities, including Gores. We do our introductions. Fortunately, he is not listening.
Yeah, so they're our colleague from.
That's true. Len or John, what am I missing? So
No, that was a good summary.
So the, essentially, the former appropriations committee member has a question and that makes me nervous.
Maybe when you-
She probably, you know, we're doing window dressing out here. Go ahead, Mark.
I just want to confirm on line 87, there's an updated forecast, which looks, the way I read this, the governor did not expect, well, the governor expected 163.72 and the new forecast is 226.
Yeah.
So there's an extra 63 in terms of revenue.
Yes,
It's not constant.
and it's all spent in the
I
fiscal year
understand.
26 budget. Yes, that updated forecast didn't happen until third week in June, or January. And so the BAA knew we had the updated forecast from last summer, which gave you that figure of 63 million. But even with it, they did not spend all of it. Because, you might have heard something about the property tax rates level on average while this transition is going on. And there are a whole host of other one-time expenses which are in the fiscal year 26 budget. We heard about this morning, so that will be a discussion in one. Just by way of sequence here, the bill was introduced this morning as H 141. So if you want the text of the full bill, just go to the website and get H 141. I believe it was referred to the House Ways and Means Committee this morning. Ways and Means has already seen their sections of it, but under our rules, it needs to go to it because there are a couple technical changes with taxes, and there's one kind of policy change with sunset on the marriage license part. So I believe Ways and Means will vote on that here today, which means tomorrow, if that happens, it will go on notice calendar, and then Thursday will be up for second reading and third reading on Friday. That's the plan on schedule. And by way of background, the bill, it won't show the committee vote because it's a new bill. But the committee vote to introduce it was 7th to 4th. Yes, sir.
So with line 63 it says that the whole other program.
Yeah, that's actually the, well, 160, yeah, 63, I'm sorry.
But the testimony that we're gonna put weather in May and June or.
Well, to fellow down in Pennsylvania the other day, there's, I think, saw shadows, so that means 6 more weeks of winter, but that's in the eyes of the cold. In terms of, I think what the chair of House Human Services told us, they wanted the extension, give the committee time to come up with a new permanent program for hotel general assistance housing. We don't know what that's going to look like. And so this is a change from what the governor and the legislature agreed to in last year's budget. So, Brenda?
I'm actually on that committee and I was very, very frustrated. We were given 2 proposals. Increase the housing for June 30th. One proposal was 50,000. The one that came appropriations like 1.7 million. And I said, how come appropriations? I raised my hand and asked. It's not giving both proposals so they can make a fair decision. The $50,000 proposal was for the most needy, people in wheelchairs, people that really can't get to a tent, etc. But now they can, the only proposal the appropriations received was the almost $2 million proposal. And I said, that's so wrong. A lot of the people have already met their 80 days. I used to work in them. I used to be the homeless one there, by the way. The month of June, campgrounds open May 15th. So we could all go camping and be in a tent from May 15th on. So I'm very frustrated by this because it doesn't seem right to me. And I'm disappointed that both proposals weren't brought to our appropriations so they can make a fair decision.
I totally agree with stuff, this here and there, meeting.
Yeah, right, I apologize, I did 2 things. The second one being on March 67, whereby our bonds paid out $14 million. It's still ongoing. With the Dave, can you tell me so that for bond retirement?
Not in this context. I mean, at someday, we have to pay back all bonds. So at someday, whether that's next year or 2 years from now, it's unclear. We'll have to find ways to backfill that. Hopefully, our revenue. I mean, that's all I can say. There are, different schools of thought on that. We do have approximately $600 million outstanding bonds at any one given time. So whether we had 600 or $580 million, some would like a difference isn't that big, but someday you do have to pay them. doesn't happen. I mean, it was the treasurer testified that he, based on the current market conditions with what the current bonds are at and the interest rates, he wasn't looking to buy, it wasn't the opportunity to buy now. In other words, if you have a bond and it's at 3%, and if you had, you know, maybe making more on the interest on it than you are paying. So he was not in any hurry to take out $14 million in addition. Yes, Rob.
Two questions. First one, just to make sure I understand. So is it true, based on this, that the bottom line is that we are feeding forwards into the next fiscal year of $133.59 million? Is that the way I read that? Am I reading that correctly?
Yes. I mean, 77 million of that in the fiscal year 26 is being set aside to help with property tax rates for this year. Okay, and there's obviously gonna be a lot of conversation about that going forward, not only in our committee, but you know, certain ways and means and education about whether that's a good use of those funds.
Right, and I just wanted to clarify that it's that column, the house column numbers, that the number being fed forward next year.
Yeah.
Was that done? Okay, second question is what is driving the 4 dissenting votes within the appropriations?
I think any concerns, one, spending the $14 million that was maybe, you know, maybe they're all good uses. And I don't think anybody questions the HCB in terms of, you know, trying to put as much money as we can there on whether or not it's good to take money that is your fund for bond emission. And also as part of that, probably the other big item was, the continuation of winter rules, for the hotel program till June 30th. With the idea that we're create some kind of entitlement program forward for the hotel program. So, some say, hey, that's not a big deal. That's not where I am. I'm not here to get political, but I'm here to, you know, answer the concerns. I don't know if that's fair to, respond. So, I mean, there are a lot of things, and then most things in here are necessary. I would like to send the vote for the zero. It is what it is. We'll get over it. Really, I had a lot of this year. Other questions on the topic?
Yeah. The ask on line 63, mention of the whole of the.
Yep.
Did anybody, the ask with, was it 2 or 3 months instead?
So 3 months.
3 months instead.
Yeah, April, May, June. Yeah.
Now,
It started in September. And it starts in September. It was, the old bill was, what we just said started last year was November to April. They added on at the end and they added on at the beginning.
extended to April. So,
No, that was
Last year,
March 31 or April 1 was in last year's budget. That was the agreement between the legislature and the administration to stop. When you're not in winter rules, and I'll probably trip on this one, but when you're not in winter rules, the number of hotel rooms, I think, is capped at 1,100 as opposed to 1,225 or something we currently have in the winter rules. And additionally, there's an 80-day cap on number of days that anyone can stay in the hotel. That cap goes away in the winter. So the cap will disappear, extending it to June 30th. And the hope is that there is a new permanent program going forward, which we don't know what that is at this point.
my concern is this. If anybody on the committee, appropriations committee, if anybody offer any kind of compromise on that ask,
We had some private conversations, but, I'll leave it at that. I'm happy to talk to you offline. Okay. Okay.
I'm familiar with the 3.1 million dollar investment in the correct industry. But was that transfer within correct these monies for pre-existing or was that?
Wait,
Which
No,
number?
sorry, that's your. Right, which line are you referring to, Bill?
Transfer.
Which line?
What line?
It's actually not on the left, on the back. But
Oh, that's would be.
third bullet point, so in the front part. We know $1 million in residential activity. We heard. Testimony as to why and then ameliorated from the future and we corrections. But my question specifically is whether if that $3.1 million. Just a transfer within the corrections or.
No, it's, this is general fund. General fund is, larger share of general fund. This is our first link, actually, the appropriate. It's general fund money into the corrections industry funds, which has a deficit. You'll see, and I didn't go through them all, but, there are a number of funds that, we discovered have a deficit in there. Obviously, it's not a way to run a business if you can avoid it. One of the bigger transfers was a net $11 million going into what wasn't all going into the liquor fund, because we just lowered the amount that we take out of it. We were taking out more than the liquor fund has been generating through the state for several years. And then when you do that, all of a sudden you find out you got red ink and liquor fund. So we had, because of the revenue upgrade, some money. Pay that back so that fund hopefully after this fiscal year will be even. I didn't trip yet, did I? So fine. Our JFOD, you've got besides Maria, Grady were actually responsible for most of the language in here. And Nolan, who knows everything there is about Medicaid and healthcare and everything else. So, obviously we need help in that committee. Oh, they're here.
I'm just gonna move along. I appreciate the presentation.
I just get started.
We'll give you a blank room to sit in.
Okay.
I'm just gonna move along. If you have any questions, feel free to bring it up to the members of the committee. My thoughts on it. Moving along right now. Let's talk about 841 and coming out on. Well, you're gonna present this on Thursday? It's really tomorrow. Yes. 841, this is the corpse.
Good morning. We're gonna be voting page 41 at the committee today, this afternoon, which originally it was, called the abuse of a corpse bill, and you changed the name, but it's gonna be, abuse right now, it's abuse of a dead human body. Reason we use that language is because it's language that's been used in the past. The way it all came about was through, a woman that was murdered last year up in Eaglesburg in Vermont, and how small it is. Good friends of mine, good friends of your family, and they got hold of it, so it was long, and you know, with the, and there was no real solid, penalties for abusing a corpse. Which is kind of interesting, but, make a long story short, is if somebody burns, mutilates, disfigures with members, desecrates or otherwise destroys a dead human body to conceal a crime or avoid apprehension, prosecution or conviction of a crime. We started out, the bill started out as a 10-year maximum and a 5-year minimum. And,
I don't disagree with minimums, but it can cause problems in the court system with plea deals. So we got rid of the minimum on it. And Zach brought up, since we got rid of the minimum, could we increase the maximum to 15 years? And I about fell backwards in my chair when everybody agreed on it. So something that usually doesn't happen in the committees. Thanks to Zach for that. The testimony we took was incredible. From Pam Harris, who's Mrs. Martin's daughter, last Friday. And tell you the truth, I would recommend to go watch it. That's how terrible. I anticipate 11 vote coming out of committee today. So it'll be on notice tomorrow, tomorrow Wednesday, or we have a second reading, third reading on Friday.
I'm gonna open up if anybody else has any bills, that they're introducing or want to talk about, or bills that their committee they want to talk about.
I just want to clarify, we got an answer, thank you, to the question that the special report of the Committee on Government Operations on the contested Bennington 1 election will be on the action calendar one day and then notice calendar. Hopefully that answers everybody's questions about
On the action calendar,
one day.
one day,
And
and then
then,
notice calendar.
yeah. Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Notice first.
Notice first, and yeah.
Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
There's only one vote.
The one day vote, is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's my understanding. Is that your understanding as well? Thank you.
And this
Yeah,
is.
now that I got it right.
This is just us. We're ones that
Just the
can-
house.
Only the house can
Yes.
vote on it, so it'll be on notice, once it goes out, once you guys make your final. Vote on it. Do you think today or tomorrow, or is there? kind of-
Tomorrow, where, we have a possible vote warned on the agenda tomorrow at 11 a.m.
Then it'll go on notice for Thursday, and then we'll be voting for it on the action calendar on Friday. If everything goes to plan, I think we're looking at it.
Yes, thank you.
Anyone else have anything they want to talk about in committee or any bill? Mark.
I have a bill, been working with A&R and the landfill. Landfill is constantly looking at different pilot projects that are out there to treat emerging contaminants. And last summer, they brought a demonstration in. They didn't think they needed a permit, they didn't need a permit. So we're fine. We're trying to figure out a better way of allowing them to bring in, it's not just that this could affect you again as well. Pilot, permitting for pilot. So I had this bill, if anyone wants to sign on to it, I'd like to get it in today so that we can get that going. But it will help figure out these new technologies that keep coming out to either destroy or to help reduce the amount of pollutants that are in landfill, but for other things as well throughout the state.
Anybody else? If you wanna come up and present one bill that you're using. Maybe introduce yourself too.
Yes, I will. Mark Olson, from Bristol, Starksville, Northeast Addison, rural town. Lots of my neighbors, Republican as well as Democrat and progressive neighbors, really interested in kind of worried about what the legislature would do with their smaller community schools. So I circulated over the weekend, a proposal to pass summary, trying to give a fair shake to some of these schools. They want to be able to show that they provide good education value and that they are financially viable. And I think they should be given the opportunity to do that. Sort of counterpart to some thought out there, they can set up, some sort of arbitrary limit and say, okay, if you don't meet that arbitrary criteria, how you go. So this is kind of a different way of looking at it. I think it actually fits in with the governor's plan. Page 12 of his additional plan talked about taking a look at educational value and financial viability. So I'm offering this as a way to sort of shape out, give some specifics, and hopefully you might be able to support it. I have some copies, and anyone wants it, but certainly have copies here, and anyone who has any questions, feel free to come. Thank you. Thank you.
Anybody have anything out they want to develop and talk about, or any bills you like? And Bill.
Like he said, that little gym will be ready on Thursday.
Yes, room 10 will be ready on Thursday in case we need to caucus or discuss anything that comes out between now and then. Room 10 is where government operations is right now, which will be our future caucus group. So. Anybody else? Anything not? Say enjoy your meeting and just let us know if you have any questions. Full adjourned.